Hey guys, what's up? It's BigJackFilms here, and welcome back to an opening night. You guys are getting two this week in a row. The first one was from JT is Reborn. He took a look at Bad Boys for Life, which came out, I know, a few weeks ago. We're a little late on movies, but that's only because there's not many good movies out. I mean, probably next week you'll see me review Birds of Prey, but I did want to get something out for the usual Friday schedule, so I figured, fuck it, let me talk about a Netflix show for once. Most notably, the first episode of a show that was introduced to me by Lunacy Bunny. Again, link down below to her channel. Please go subscribe to her, guys. She's a wonderful talent. We want to get her up there at 1,000 subscribers to help her out in getting a job here on YouTube. So, that, and I'll also put JT's Reborn down there, too, if you guys want to see what his show, because he also does opening nights on his channel on a show called After the Movie. Anyway, so I'm here. Oh, shit, and there goes my phone. Wow, we are off to a really bad start already. Holy shit. Ugh, okay. We're gonna have to cut here. Sorry about that, I had to get my phone. But anyway, we're here to talk about the first episode of a Netflix show titled The Witcher, which, from what I heard, is basically based on a book that was turned into a video game that was turned into a show on Netflix. Now, I know nothing about the books, I know nothing about the game, I've never played the game. I think it's a new game that's out on this generation consoles. Now, the thing is with games for me, guys, is that I've actually cut myself off from buying any new consoles, and there's a reason why. It's mostly because of money constraints. Consoles nowadays cost between $700-800, maybe even $1,000. You have to always connect it to the internet for it to play or whatever. And on top of that, games are now $100 each for new games, and you're only getting half the game because you gotta get subscriptions and DLCs and all that shit, whatever, you know? Loot boxes, it's complete bullshit. The gaming industry in terms of business strategies has completely gone down the shitter for me, so I've quit in that sense. And that's why I'm not even that big of a gamer. Like, I like my retro gaming system. Super Nintendo's my favorite game system, but next-gen games, as of now, I don't care. I think my cutoff date for me is the Xbox 360, PS3, and the Nintendo Wii, maybe even the Wii U. Although the Switch looks interesting, but regardless, so gaming for me, in terms of The Witcher, I have no clue what it's about, and as we all know, normally, video game movies very rarely work, and it all stems back from the original Super Mario Brothers movie, but lately there have been some good video game movies. From what I heard, Detective Pikachu was fantastic, even though I have not seen it yet. It also broke the mold of good live-action anime adaptations with Alita Battle Angel last year, which was amazing, by the way. So, The Witcher, I was kind of like, a lot of people said was really good. And it was mostly because there was good filmmaking involved. Kind of the same, I guess, people who did Game of Thrones. I'm not 100% if many of the people in Game of Thrones moved to The Witcher. But the big driving point of this series was Henry Cavill, who you guys know as Superman in the latest DC movies. Now bear in mind, he's a great Superman, but he's in terrible DC movies. I really like Henry Cavill as Superman. So he is attached to this, and he's also a big-time gamer, so he's been a fan of these games, he's a fan of the books, so he was the right choice, kind of his dream project. So, me and Lunacy Bunny, we sat through the first episode. We actually watched this on par with Train to Busan, which was my last review. And the each episode's about an hour long, so I don't know, maybe I'll make these a series of vlogs that will be exclusively to YouTube, even though right now I'm doing the Inuyasha vlogs, which are exclusive to Patreon, if you guys are wondering. But with The Witcher, the first episode, in terms of story, basically you have this Legolas-looking guy, played by Henry Cavill, who has two swords. He kind of reminds me of one of the Wraith Ghost guys from Shadow of Mordor. And basically he goes around slaying monsters and all that shit. He's a monster slayer or whatever, a demon slayer. So already I'm on board, because demon slayers and shit are kind of my thing. It's like Inuyasha for me. And, you know, obviously he's some sort of, I guess, sentinel being or something that doesn't really fit well with the other kingdoms and the other races and humans that inhabit this fantasy world. Meanwhile, there's, like, this king and queen, they have a princess, and apparently she's of great importance, as they always are. And you've got things like, him, like, searching for somebody. There's, women involved, there's sex, there's slaying demons, there's sword fights. The sword fights are really good in this. It's a bunch of sword and sorcery stuff, and it's right up my alley. I think for the first episode, I did really enjoy this. I want to watch the rest. I want to try to get my mom involved because, I've been really, when it comes to fantasy, the genre has kind of died down a little bit, mostly because of the superhero genre completely dominating, film, screens right now. But fantasy, since I'd say the last 3 Hobbit movies have kind of died down in terms of cinema experiences, which is a shame because I do like my fair share of fantasy movies. I haven't seen the Warcraft movie. I heard that was hit or miss. But in terms of fantasy, it's been mostly relying on... Wow, we are really out of focus there. Okay. In terms of fantasy, it's been really relying on television, and that's for one simple reason. Game of Thrones. So, Game of Thrones, my mother and I watched every season from when it started to when it ended last year, and I still think it was a good show. I know there were some problems fans had, but I overall enjoyed it. In fact, I'd say the ending to that show, despite people getting really pissed off about it, was bittersweet. It was a very bittersweet ending, and I think it applies the classic rule of war. There are no winners, only losers. There's no good war in this. There's no battle of good versus evil. Everybody's a dick. Everybody's for themselves, and ultimately, when they can't work together, nobody wins. And I think that was the overall message of the show. So, even at the point, like, fuck the throne. Nobody gives a shit. But in terms of The Witcher, because it's a new series on Netflix, and I think for Game of Thrones fans, this is a good way to kind of transition into more fantasy shows, is to get into The Witcher, because it is sort of a precursor, like a follow-up to Game of Thrones. It has nothing to do with the continuity, don't get me wrong, but for people craving fantasy television, this is the next big thing to watch. And again, the first episode was pretty solid. A lot of great action, a lot of great creatures. The special effects are fantastic. The sets do kind of, like, especially in the village, look like they're stuck with one street area. And again, it's the first season, and normally, the first season looks pretty cheap. I mean, you go back and watch the first season of Game of Thrones, those sets, everything looks like a goddamn Renaissance fair. That first season has not aged well, and that's probably because they had a low budget. Once they got season 2, they had as much money as they wanted. But with The Witcher, it does have that sense, but it does feel a little bigger. It has more so the same amount of budget as season 2 of Game of Thrones, meaning, like, they had a bit more money, but not as a bit more than the first season, but not enough to cover a full cost of a big epic. So in that sense, it works for a first season, especially a first episode. The cast so far is pretty small. The only person I really can remember is Henry Cavill. I know there's, like, a wizard dude at some point, and it's your classic wizard, which the guy reminded me of Merlin from the 1981 Excalibur film, which is one of my favorite Arthur mythology films in terms of, like, the Arthurian lore. I love Excalibur. Really enjoyed that film. I watched that as a kid. Even as a kid, I was like, what the fuck? But now I'm like, this movie's awesome. Friggin' Patrick Stewart in that is like, it's like, if a boy has drawn the sword, a boy shall be king. I have a sword for the thumbnail. And it's like, are you with us or against us, Patrick Stewart? And Patrick Stewart's just like, against you! Such cheesy dialogue, but, like, Excalibur's great. But back to The Witcher. Yeah, there's just a lot of great fight scenes and sword fights and shit. A lot of great stuff in that. And yeah, it's just so far, I'm kind of seeing where it's going. You have your MacGuffins, you have your princess, you have your warrior to protect her. It's kind of all very much a good start. Henry Cavill, I really liked in this. Now, Henry Cavill, for me, the only thing I think of is Superman. And it's the same thing with Christopher Reeve. He suffers from the curse of Superman. You're only going to be known for this role. Because he's done other things. He's done, that Mission Impossible movie where that's what caused the controversy about, Justice League with the mustache. But here he's pretty good. And I love his outfit. I love his costume. I love the sword he carries. That sword's a badass sword. I love that shit. But in terms of character, he's very quiet, very mysterious, and obviously you want to know more about him, which I'm looking forward to watching episode 2 at some point. So, that's all great, and I actually watched some behind the scenes on him talking about the swords, how they, like, use rubber swords, and they use different, and they were able to use CGI, which is a bit of a hassle for me. I mean, I'm not a fan of, when you show a fight scene, and you cut limbs off, right? You cut an arm off, it's like Monty Python, you know, just a flesh wound, but you get to the point of, you have to CGI limbs in order to make the shots better. I don't know about that. I would much prefer using practical effects. You know, put a fake arm and cut the fucking fake arm off and have the little, you know, oozing blood with a little hose attached to it or something. I'm a big practical effects guy. So, would I wish for more? Absolutely. But hey, you know, it's a cheap budget. They have to use CGI because that shit's cheap. And then in terms of, yeah, it's just, like, it's a good start. I will say this, though. Henry Cavill, I think, in my opinion, would make an excellent casting decision for the father of Inuyasha and Sesshomaru in a live-action adaptation. For me, like, Sesshomaru especially, I think it would either be him, like, I think Henry Cavill would either be Sesshomaru or their father, but for Sesshomaru, I would have cast, I've always thought about casting Orlando Bloom. You know, if you take Orlando Bloom and you give him the Witcher outfit, and give him, like, a katana, there's your Sesshomaru, essentially. But yeah, so, like, so far, so good. I really enjoyed The Witcher, the first episode. If you guys want to see me talk about the rest of the show in episodical order, let me know in the comments. I might make these part of opening night. Who knows, but obviously I got my Inuyasha vlogs for Patreon, which are going to be the focus of most of my television time. But yeah, let me know in the comments if you want me to talk about more of the show. So I'd say the first episode, it's a good 8.5 out of 10. I have to see if the show's gonna continue to catch my interest. I might watch one again this week, depending on who I watch it with, because I do like to watch television with a group of people. But, yeah, so far so good. Next week, I will probably, this week, get a chance to see Birds of Prey. I know that movie's not doing well box office-wise, but it's getting really good reviews, and I am curious to see it, because I am kind of a defender of Suicide Squad. So and Margot Robbie especially is one of the best actresses in the business right now. So anything she's in, I'll watch. So I want to go see Birds of Prey because she's an excellent Harley Quinn. And I think this was all her idea. Like, this was all kind of produced and financed by her. I'm not 100%. I think lately DC and Warner Brothers, they've kind of said, fuck continuity-driven universe. Let's just, like, do our own movies and make good movies, which should always be the top priority. Figure out how you cross over with them much later. Because it'll save you a lot of trouble in terms of casting and prepping all this shit. So, yeah, I'll check out Birds of Prey probably this week. I also do want to check out the Sonic movie. I heard that's coming out this week, but I have to see if I can get time to watch it. But obviously, of course, I want to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts on the first episode of The Witcher and the show overall? Let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget to support us on Patreon. Just $1 more will get you early access to all of our content as well as other special features. You'll also get a chance to help us out on future projects as well as a potential Inuyasha fan film and a few other things down the line. And of course, you know, mail us, subscribe, follow us on social media, and until the next video, guys, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys later. This is BigJackFilms signing off, saying, here's hoping the rest of the show, I hope, catches my attention? Who knows? I'll see you guys later.